I think the hardest part about business is people, and the hardest part about people is communication.
Welcome to the Freedom Real Estate Podcast with your boy, Andrew Freed, and I am excited and ecstatic to welcome Dan Brault. This is probably the first time I didn't butcher her last name, so thank you for the heads up. Dan has really done it all. I think his father owned a Tony Robbins franchise as a kid. So this guy's been involved in mindset and entrepreneurship at a very young age. I believe he was a fitness coach, business owner. He lost it all. He learned a ton of lessons along the way. And now I'm excited to welcome Dan Brault to the show. How you doing today?
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Of course. So Dan, you started as an entrepreneur at a young age, or like how did you get into entrepreneurship initially?
I remember my grandma telling me, I don't really recall this, but I was like making these bead animals and selling them out of her apartment in New York City when I was like 7 years old. And then I started coaching people when I was 12. And I've never wanted to work for somebody else. Like there are certainly periods where I did. But I remember in my college orientation, they asked us all, like, who wants to own their own business one day? And I was one of those that raised my hands confidently. I've been an employee of other people, but I've always wanted to do my own thing.
You didn't start in business as an entrepreneur. I believe you started as a personal trainer, right?
Yeah. Right after college, decided if I was ever going to move somewhere far, that would be the easiest time. So I'm in New York now. I moved out to California, but the entrepreneurial bug hit me pretty quickly after that.
Okay. So you studied everything. You studied business, you studied fitness, you studied mindset. Where does your obsession come from when it comes to mastery?
Good question. Honestly, growing up, like I said, my dad, he was into all that stuff. We had a gym in our basement, so he was into fitness. He was into martial arts. He'd done that for his whole life. He was a collegiate wrestler. He was obviously heavy into personal development, coaching. So what little boy doesn't want to be like his dad? So I just learned that stuff at a young age. I saw what he was listening to, saw what he was reading. I remember Tony, back when CDs were a thing, we had that. It was Personal Power, a 30-day Tony Robbins CD program.
Okay.
I've listened to that thing dozens of times. So I just got into that stuff way before a lot of other people around me. Started working out at a really young age. I had a full gym in my basement, so it was just super easy. Mm-hmm. But I just, I learned a very structured, disciplined, goal-oriented sort of mindset right from the get-go. And it was always, how can I improve? Tony talks about the CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. And I just love learning too. I have all these books. I love reading. I love learning because I've spent a long time in finding what's my unique ability? Where do I really shine? And I actually have it right here in front of me, so I don't forget it on one of my sticky notes on one of my monitors here. So I love the process of
learning. What is it? What is it? You can't leave us hanging.
So the process of starting with learning and then coming up with ideas and innovation, and then using that to create and collaborate, to grow and transform, and then using that to share with others and recruit and galvanize, and then just repeat and then continue to learn and improve and share and grow and transform. And so I need that time. I've learned that if I'm just busy all day long with meetings and tasks, I'm not at my best. I need space to slow down and read and think and learn. Otherwise, I'm not going to do my best work. And it's taken me actually a really long time to learn how I actually operate my best.
So it sounds like it took you a very long time to figure out that sometimes it's better working smarter than harder. And in your particular case, you really have to lean into self-development. You have to lean into your own mindful time, your own mindfulness to really get a hold of kind of what your genius is.
I think it's, especially today, it's sort of ingrained in a lot of people, what working hard means, or you have to work hard to be successful. And honestly, I think that is a requirement, but it only gets you so far. And there's actually a point where working harder actually is the thing stopping you from getting to that next level. And because at that point, if you're just focused on working harder, it's a very specific type of work. And usually it's like you personally doing the tasks, you personally getting your hands in the stuff. But that's, with business owners that I work with, that's where they cap themselves. It's like, if you're trying to grow a business, or you're trying to grow a real estate portfolio, and you're doing flips, let's say you're doing flips, and you're hands-on, swinging the hammers, painting the houses, doing everything yourself, of course you're going to be capped. You can only put in so many hours. You can only do so many houses at once. And so taking it from that frame, someone's like, oh yeah, of course. But they forget about that same mindset when they link it to business activities like marketing and sales and ops. And they still have their hand in everything. And they're like, well, I'm working harder than ever. I'm working more than ever. I've learned all this new stuff, and the business still isn't growing, or it's still stuck. I'm still dealing with the same issues. It's like, well, yeah, because you're still approaching it essentially from the same mindset of working harder to get to that next level. And so while you do have to work hard, there is a point where working harder is not going to keep improving your outcome. It's actually going to hold you back.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of Principles by Ray Dalio. And in there, he talks about the machine. And for any business, any process, any system, it's a machine, and it encompasses two things: design and people, right? And if you're just stuck in people, if you're stuck in your head down doing the task and not logically thinking of the best design for this system or this business or this process, you're going to limit your growth exponentially.
Yeah. So that's an interesting problem, because if you think about it logically, it's like, well, of course, if I'm doing everything, then yeah, it's going to be limited by me. But what's often missed is the identity component of that, and the hidden challenges and the hidden assumptions and the hidden commitments behind all of that. So, for example, how often do we hear about the CEO who's grown his business a bit, it's financially doing well, but they still have their hand in every deal, and they make every major decision, every hire they're involved in, and they often invent problems so they have something to do. Like, that is like pretty much every small business, because that CEO is still identifying themselves as the star, as the hero, as the savior. And they have their identity tied so closely to the business of, it works because I'm good at what I do. It works because I'm really skilled, because I have all this experience, because I know all the answers. And so they get a sense of personal satisfaction out of being the go-to guy, being the rainmaker, being the one who can solve the problem, being the one who has the answers. They get a lot of gratification and connection and significance from that. So there's these opposing forces of, yeah, I want a business that can run without me and can scale beyond myself. But they have, on the other side, they have, well, I want to be the hero. I want to be important. I want to be significant. I want to be needed. And if you don't ever squash that need, or rather replace it with something else, like, well, I am significant because I created the system that makes it all run. I am significant and important because I set the direction for the company, or because I train the leaders who lead everybody else. If you can't replace that identity and upgrade it, you're always going to be stuck.
I totally agree with that when it comes to identity. But I think you bring up a lot of good concepts there. But it's to give our audience some practical tools on how they can implement some of those concepts. I think maybe like EOS or Cultural Index. What do you recommend to implement some of those steps you mentioned?
Yeah, so EOS culture, so those are good tools. EOS, good framework for running meetings and tracking KPIs, stuff like that. This kind of stuff it's not in a system. It's not in a tool. It's in a conversation. It truly, it's one of those things. There's not really a system to it because you have to find what are those hidden commitments, what are those hidden beliefs, those hidden assumptions. Those don't show up in an operating system. It's often in what people don't say. So that's where I mean it's taking somebody else to unlock what you can't find yourself. It's yes, you need the operating systems. Yes, you need the self-awareness. Yes, you need the diagnostics to evaluate people and your team members and culture and all these things, all very usable tools. But if you don't have an outside perspective, a mastermind group, a coach, a mentor, a someone like that, you're not going to be living up to your full potential. There are reasons why every professional athlete in the world has coaches, multiple coaches. And it's not because those coaches are better at the thing than the athlete. Like, for example, I know you're in New England. When Tom Brady was the quarterback of the New England Patriots, he was arguably the best quarterback in, if not one of the best, in the history of the NFL. And he had multiple coaches. And he didn't have coaches because they were better quarterbacks than he was. They were just able to unlock things and help him see things differently than he could have on his own. And so it's not that it's this system that they operate in. It's like, yes, that stuff's important. They need a good operating system. They need to run the right plays. But having the perfect playbook doesn't mean you're going to be the best team. It's the stuff behind it that prevents people from fully executing. It's not knowing what to do. Every NFL quarterback knows what to do, and they know how to do it. So it's not, and they all generally have the same type of plays. Those aren't the things that make the big difference. That's a requirement to get you there. The thing that gets you to that next level is that outside perspective that helps you unlock things that you couldn't on your own.
Totally. Yeah, no, I've had a business coach, very effective. Very effective. They essentially helped me build my whole organization, utilizing the Cultural Index. So I found that very, very helpful because ultimately, I came to the realization that if you don't build your organization intentionally, if you don't run your business intentionally, it's going to run you, right? You're going to hire, I'm going to hire 5 Andrews. I'm going to hire 5 people like me. If I don't intentionally hire the right role with the right skills, with the right traits to be successful, with those tasks.
Yeah. And probably one of the biggest challenges people face, I think the hardest part about business is people. And the hardest part about people is communication. And things like, culture index, predictive index, any of those, working genius, anything like that, DISC, so helpful in understanding people at a deeper level so that you can better lead them. And if you don't know how to communicate with somebody, it's probably not going to work out, or you're just going to be so much more stressed than is really necessary because it's just going to cause so much more conflict and misunderstandings. And you're going to have these expectations that they don't understand. So it becomes an expectation instead of an agreement. And expectations always lead to resentment. And I mean, you and I both know we can probably name dozens of resentful business owners who seem to be doing well on paper. But when you ask them how business is going, all they do is complain and talk about how, their people are a hassle and a pain in the butt, and it's, a pain to manage. It takes up all their time and energy. And it doesn't have to be that way, but it often is. And if you have the right tools and the right mindset and you keep leveling up your game, there's really no limit to what you can have or create or be. But oftentimes, we need the systems, we need the tools, we need the coach, we need the mentor, the guide, the mastermind, the something else outside of our own thinking to get us there.
I totally agree with you. And, when it comes to being a leader of an organization, like a lot of times, like these skills aren't taught to you in school. You have to learn them through trial and error or through proactively learning it. And, this brings up, I went to a mastermind recently and it had, who was the main speaker was Cam, the guy Cam who wrote a vivid vision. Very, very smart guy. This guy has built many billion-dollar organizations from like 40 people to like 3,000 people. And his big thing is like, you really got to like, just like you said, you got to like train your sport. He's like, you got to train your leadership skills. I think he had like 12 leadership skills that he identified, like project management, situational leadership, email management. There was a bunch of them, one-on-one coaching, interviewing. But in there, he's like, if you want to be an elite leader, you got to train it day in and day out. And he actually had, I believe, billion-dollar CEOs take this course on a regular basis. So I totally agree with you. For you to be elite, you definitely need some coaching, and you definitely need self-improvement at the top of your mind.
There's so many options out there. There's so many frameworks and systems, and at the end of the day, they probably all work to some degree. Any whether you run EOS or you run something relatively similar, what's probably more important is just that you have a system and that you're not winging it, because winging it's never going to get you anywhere. If you don't know how a change you made, how that changed your results, and you can't track it and measure it, you say, well, I did this and that resulted in that. If you can't say that, you're going to be guessing your entire career. And I don't know about you, but I don't like guessing with my money.
Well, let's go back to your past. And I think you've had some times where it seemed to going great, and then business kind of fell in your lap, and things, unexpected things happen. So kind of talk about that. What was the wake up call for you where, like you said, rather than just letting things happen, you got to be more proactive with how you manage your affairs?
Definitely. I can make it sound good, and anything for looking from the outside in can look good, but once you look at the past, not always the prettiest journey. So yeah, 2019. I mean, going into that, I started real estate investing in 2016.
Okay, good year. Good year to invest.
Started with flipping and rentals, and all was going well. Started, picking up steam. This was all while I had a W-2. So I was working in medical device sales, was doing flips and rentals and stuff on the weekends. And then it started going really well. So I left my medical device sales job.
Where was this at? Where was this? Where your properties located?
All in upstate New York, where I am. Yeah.
Like Albany area?
I'm in Rochester.
Okay.
Yeah, so all over here. And then I learned what wholesaling was, because my second and third flips I bought from a wholesaler before I knew what wholesaling was. And I saw that they were making as much on the wholesale fee as I was planning on making on the flip.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, these guys, they don't have to manage any contractors. They don't have to wait for the money. They don't have to do any of the work. They don't have to take the gamble, and they're making as much as I am on just selling a piece of paper. So I learned very quickly what wholesaling was, getting my own deals. And that's primarily what we've done the most of over the past 10 years. We do a lot of novations and a lot of wholesale deals. But going back to, 2018, 2019, things were going really well. Team was growing, was getting bigger. And I did two things simultaneously, which, looking back, obviously a mistake. One, I started a new construction business with arguably one of the most talented builders I've ever witnessed. I mean, for example, so Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect, he has a replica. There's a replica house of his here in Rochester. This guy that I partnered with helped to build that house. So they would only use the most skilled builders on a house like that. What I didn't realize was that his ethics and business practices were not up to the standard of his building practices. So I was admittedly sort of blinded by his skill in building, and I overlooked some things that I probably knew about, but I wasn't taking a close look at it because I saw this other really exciting thing. And
you had a blind spot. Maybe a coach or a mastermind might have exposed that to you, right?
I did. I had a really big blind spot. And I was,
which rightfully so. If I was in your scenario, I'd have the same exact blind spot, right?
yeah, and I was really excited about the possibilities because we were talking about doing some big stuff. And so I had that going on. So we started doing like new builds and stuff like that. We were building a lake house for a pretty prominent family here in Western New York, like well known. They own a winery, like a nationally recognized winery, and like it was a pretty big deal at the time. And we were hired to build a lake house for one of their family members. Simultaneously, I had taken on the job of renovating and repurposing a historic property from, it was a Masonic temple, and I was converting it to a single family luxury home. And I mean, so it was in a historic village. So I had to go through 6 months of committee meetings before we could even put a shovel in the ground.
Historical committees are literally the worst thing about real estate. It's up there, man.
Never do it again. Never do it again.
You got to like community activism. You got to get everybody on board. You got to send letters. It's like a whole thing.
It was wild. It was wild. I learned a lot. I never want to go through it again. And I mean, and also dealing with the super old. I mean, the house was built in, or the property was built in. It was like 1852.
Oh, yeah. So they probably made you try to do everything original, source everything that was 10x the cost of normal supplies.
Oh, right? Yeah. So we had to do, so the windows so on that thought, the windows, we had to make replicas of the original. They were, so we had we had to use as many of the original glass panes as we could. So we had to take out the old ones, extract all the panes, the original panes, and we had to make custom mahogany windows. Each window costs $3,000 on a residential property.
How you gonna make money?
Exactly. I mean, asbestos issues, like we had to shut down for weeks because of that.
Oh, 1850, I'm sure knob and tube, right? I'm sure everything, right?
It was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally had to reframe every floor, ceiling, and wall. It was like a monumental job. And so that was going on at the same time as this new development business. While I was doing, I was doing group coaching. I had my own podcast. I was still doing flipping and wholesaling. I was a part of all these other mastermind groups and coaching groups. And I was like,
how do you still have your hair?
Yeah, I was doing way too much of it. At this point, that's when I started developing digestive issues and was having to go to the doctor because I was having such issues. And so, all this combined, that partner I was working with, he was running the crews and the jobs into the ground, like wasn't doing at all what he said he would do. We ran out of the money in the middle of building this person's house. They, refused to pay the next draw. I had purchased all these large pieces of equipment that then I had no way to pay for. And the historic property renovation budget completely blown, sold for way less than we thought it was going to. Price drop. I mean, it was a nightmare. Got to the point where,
did all these projects exit right during COVID?
This was right before COVID.
Okay, right before COVID.
Yeah, so right before COVID. So, I mean, to the point where I lost over $800,000, and I sold all my rental properties. I liquidated my 401k. I was selling chairs, tables, lamps. I sold my truck. Like I got to the point where I had nothing. There was a point, I remember this very clearly. It was like midnight. I was on my phone. I was looking at my bank balance. I had just sold my truck the day before for $6,000, and I deposited that in my checking account. And all of my accounts, I only had $6,000.
Wow.
So that was it. Like there's no other money coming in, I had no other sources of income. I still had a shit ton of debt. Sorry if I can't say that. I still had a ton of debt. And I had an infant daughter. I was recently married. My digestive issues were terrible. I could barely sleep. Like I was in hell. And it took on way too much at once. I had major blind spots. I was trying to grow too quickly, too soon. I was trying to do too much at once. It was at that point, it was not worth it. I was like, I'm doing all this. I feel like I'm doing all the right things. And this is what I get, like stress and debt and losing everything. And, you know, I'd worked on all this stuff for a year and I didn't make anything that year either. And now, so I'm just like it was just loss, disappointment, debt, frustration, anger. Like it was a bad year.
Well, so how did you turn that around? Because obviously in a good place now.
So at that point I was like, F this, not worth it. Like, and I was like, I contacted my old boss in the medical device company that I was working with. I was like, look, man, like I tried this real estate thing. Like I fell flat on my face. Like I know we did well together previously. Like, here's what I want to do. And I created this whole plan. I was like, this is what I want to do. This, and he literally created a job for me.
Wow.
And so I was like I was like traveling to all these different states, training all these different people, doing like, it was pretty cool. But then COVID hit and everything shut down. No more like, cause I was in operating rooms. I was like doing surgeries in operating rooms and everything shut down. All these surgeries just stopped. And I'm like, well, I can't do nothing. Like so I started wholesaling again. I'm like, I'm not gonna like screw flipping. I'm done. Like I've fallen flat on my face too many times to keep doing that again. But wholesaling, I'm like, I don't have to manage contractors. I don't own the property. So there's no real risk of losing money on a deal. It's just sales and marketing. I know these things. I'm good at those things. So I started that. It's super low risk. So I started that back up again. That started going really well. And then I was like, hey, you know, boss, I'm like, COVID's going on right now. There's nothing I can do with this business. This other one's going really well. I'm going to focus on that. Because he was just paying me like a base just to basically wait.
Yeah.
Basically just to ride out the storm until surgery started up again. I'm like, look, like I'm making money doing this other thing. I see this as this is going really well. I'm going to go do that. You don't have to pay me anymore. Like, let me just go do that. And so at that point, like my risk tolerance went from here to here. I'm like, I can't put my family through that again. I can't put myself through that again. It wasn't worth it. So yeah, started wholesaling, taking a much more measured approach, working with, you know, getting outside opinions. Even though I do coach, I've always had coaches at one point or another. I think there's so much value in that at any point. There's always that outside perspective that can tell you something or help see something differently than what you can. And so I wholesaled my way out of it. And that's how I got back to stability and a life that wasn't full of such ridiculous stress. And, you know, I systemized things and I set my boundaries and my parameters and I leaned into what I'm really good at, what I want to do, what I don't want to do. Now to the point where, you know, I was previously working where I remember I would take vacations. My team would call and text and email me and like every little thing went through me. Nothing could happen significantly without me. No major decisions, all the deals, everything went through me and it was hell. It was stressful. And yeah, like the money was good, but it was stressful. My quality of life wasn't there. And now to the point where my wholesaling business doesn't need me at all. I spend 1.5 to 2 hours a week on it. Nothing is urgent that I do. It's I train my team once a week and I'm on a leadership team meeting once a week and I handle a few emails. And
what's that look like to completely systematize your wholesaling business? Like, how does that look from an organizational chart perspective or? Yeah.
So I know some, I have never had a desire to have this like massive organization. That's like, especially in something like wholesaling, that's like so transactional.
Yeah.
I coach guys that do like 500 deals a year. To me, that sounds like hell.
Yeah.
I personally have zero desire to ever have a business like that. So I consciously have chosen to keep a much leaner organization that is heavily automated and is super high profit margin. So right now, there's 4 of us, and I have sales guys that handle all sales, the entire cycle. We do, like I said, we do mostly novations. So they handle the acquisitions and the dispo side of things, and they're used to doing TC. So they stay up to date on all that. If they have to manage, if we need any quotes on anything, they get all the quotes. And I have my ops guy who runs everything else.
So
Manages our CRM, all our automations.
You kind of chose a hybrid between flipping and wholesaling, whereas you don't really ever own the property. You just come up with an agreement with the current owner for him to hold it while you renovate it and you sell it and you collect.
So we sometimes, we don't always renovate, but if the end buyer wants us to, we will. But typically we always try to not. If we can just give a credit as opposed to putting in the work, because again, that decreases our risk. Because if we go and do a bunch of work and then the buyer backs out last minute, now I have a bunch of money tied into a property that I don't own. That's risky. So anytime we can, we always try to do a credit or a pay at closing contractor. But we don't, our model of novations is not the renovations route. It's not heavily focused on basically flipping the property without owning it. That's not what we do.
Okay. Yeah. I've never heard somebody utilize novations in that way. Usually it's a wholesale contract. So that's a unique way to utilize a novation agreement.
It's like a hybrid between a retail listing and a wholesale agreement. Yeah. So, I mean, the primary benefit is we get to buy it, contract it at a wholesale price, and sell it at a retail price. So our average spread, or the average wholesaler, they make around 20,000. We're like double that.
Okay. That's smart. So that's what your business looks like today. Is you're primarily wholesale, you coach, and
then working with small business owners as well. Primarily in one of 3 stages. Either business is good, but the owner is the bottleneck and they can't seem to fix that problem. Or they have tried to grow and the business just gets heavier. And where things are just not as consistent as they want to be, and they just want to get out of that cycle.
And you primarily focus in the real estate industry?
Because I have a background in real estate, I end up working with a lot of real estate investors. But I've worked with doctors, lawyers, GCs, people in the hospitality industry, motel owners, franchise owners, brokerage owners, real estate investors of all kind, multifamily, commercial, residential. It's honestly all over the board. So
you clearly have done a lot of masterminds, a lot of business training. You're a coach. What are 2 or 3 practical pieces of advice you could give our audience on what they can do to make their business successful?
Probably number 1, if you have never taken any sort of personality profile, and there's so many out there, Culture Index, Predictive Index, Working Genius. Working Genius is one of my favorites. And I was previously certified.
By the way, you're clearly a galvanizer. I could just tell right now.
That's true. Galvanizer and innovator. And so I took that and I loved it so much that I created sort of my own combination of, I took Predictive Index, Working Genius, DISC, and Culture Index and combined them into one.
Like a baby. Put them all in like a personality test.
Yeah, and obviously you utilize AI and all that, but any of these can be really helpful. But ultimately what you want to get from this is, where should you spend more time? Where are you the strongest? Because wherever you're the strongest, that's where you're going to have the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. So, people say like, work on your weaknesses, and I don't really agree with that. So work on your weaknesses enough to where they don't hold you back. But the challenge is that if a weakness is over here, the ceiling for a weakness is like here, the floor for a strength is here. So your weakness is never going to get even as bad as your strength is going to be. So your strength can go all the way up. Your weakness is never going to even hit the floor of your strength. So your highest leverage, your highest value, your highest productivity is always going to be by leaning into your strengths. And that's also where you're going to do your best work and enjoy your work the most. It's where you're going to actually look forward to the work you do, as opposed to just grinding through your day feeling totally exhausted. And maybe money's great, but if you're dreading your day, that's just not, in my opinion, a good way to live. So these assessments, when you can better understand yourself, then you can better position yourself in your company so you're doing the work that adds the most value. And if you have your team members take similar assessments, then you can put them in a position where they are also doing their highest value work. And now you have a team of specialists who are all doing their highest value work, instead of a team of generalists who are all just doing a whole bunch of different stuff. Some of it's their strengths, some of it's their weaknesses, but generally you're getting a mediocre result. So if you can take an assessment like that and utilize it to get that self-awareness and create that within your team as well, that alone will help you create a dramatically better business.
I love the working genius. I think mine was discernment and tenacity. I remember that correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, and honestly, that's super counterintuitive, right? Because like growing up, I think we've been ingrained that like make up your weaknesses, work on your weaknesses so you're a balanced individual. But ultimately, all you're really going to be is a mediocre individual. Or you could focus on that one thing where you're a genius and become the Tom Brady in that. And maybe you suck in English, but who cares? You're freaking the best football player that ever lived.
Yeah. It's like you want a well-rounded team, but each person should be a specialist.
Totally.
So like, if you like, going back to the football analogy, like you don't want a wide receiver who's great at everything. They shouldn't be also equally good at passing and tackling and punting and field goal kicking. And like, no, because then they would just be sort of blah. Like they wouldn't really be good at anything. So what you actually want is, you want a wide receiver who's just really freaking good at being a wide receiver. And you want an offensive lineman who's really freaking good at being an offensive lineman. And so you have these people that are bad at most things, but really good at a few things. And then when you have a team like that, you have a really well-rounded team. But it's not because each person is well-rounded. It's because you have a team of specialists that overall looks well-rounded.
Yeah, I think that, I like to think of when creating a business, I like to think of it like a human being. Like you need somebody who specializes as the brain, as the strategist on top of the organization, right? You need arms, getting shit done, taking action, making sales, right? You need the internal organs, keeping everything moving, the administrative people behind the scenes, right? But ultimately, like if you don't create a business or a life intentionally, you're going to get this weird malfunctioning looking 5-darm creature that has no reason to exist. And it's not going to exist well in the business world.
Yeah, that's great. So along those lines, the other thing, like having that clear end in mind of what are you actually working towards, and
Stephen Covey, love that book.
Yeah, exactly. So begin with the end in mind, as he puts it, and that to me starts with your vision and your values. So oftentimes I find people get vision, in my eyes, wrong. When a lot of people, especially business owners, if you ask them what's their vision, all they start doing is talking about their business and the money and the deals, and that is they're losing the forest for the trees. So I like to start with vision by looking at the qualitative component of life. So how do I actually want to spend my time? Who do I want to do it with? Where do I want to be? What do I want my days, weeks, months, years to look like? How am I learning? How am I growing? What are my relationships like? What's my health like? What am I actually doing with my time? How am I actually living? How am I feeling? What are the emotions I regularly experience? I want to shape that. I want the quality of my life. That's my vision, a quality life that's connected and meaningful and intentional and happy and successful and loving and grateful. Like, that's what I see as vision. Then you take that and you say, okay, to create that, what would that need to look like qualitatively or quantitatively? So, okay, so to live that lifestyle, if I want to be able to take these vacations and live this and have this much time off and do these things, okay, I need a business that produces this much money each year. Based on my current business, what would that look like? How many deals do I need to do? How much do I need to own? How many, whatever your business is, now you turn it into numbers. And now it's just a math problem. So, okay, I need to do this for yearly to have that lifestyle. Great. So then that means monthly, quarterly, I need to do this. Monthly, I need to do this. Weekly, daily. So now you have your daily actions for your whole company. Here's what we need to do to produce these results long term. You track those results on a regular basis. You measure the inputs, you measure the outputs. As you make changes, you continue to measure. You only change one thing at a time, so you know what actually is making a difference. And now you have it's an ongoing trial and error, but it's measured, so you know what's actually working. And so now I have clarity that what I'm doing day to day, what I have my people doing day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, will lead to that long-term vision. And regularly referencing that long-term vision will help you stay on track. Because as you get around successful people, one of the most common things that you will face is vision creep, where you take their goals and suddenly they become your goals. Say, oh, that guy's doing that, I could do that. He has that, I could have that. And yes, you probably could. But the challenge is that if that's not actually aligned with your vision, you're going to go off and achieve something that doesn't actually mean anything to you. And now once you achieve it, you're going to be left feeling empty and depressed and like it wasn't worth it, because it wasn't. Like that guy that he goes and buys that mansion or goes and buys that Ferrari, that yacht, and they're not any happier than when they started. Oftentimes they're less happy because they thought it would give them some feeling that it didn't. Now they feel like all that work wasn't worth it. So sticking to your vision and knowing why you're doing something helps you to stay aligned with what you want your life to actually look like. And that's why, so I said, I knew I never wanted this big business because frankly, I don't need it. It's not aligned with my business, with my vision. I have 2 young kids and they're at the age where they still want to hang out with me. So I want to spend as much time with them as I can. I love traveling with my family. I love spending days with them. I love being able to pick my daughter up at 3 p.m. and not working the rest of the day. I love being able to drop them off at school and pick them up from school, go on trips and not have to worry about work or what my people are doing. Like, that's what I value. I value those relationships. I value my time freedom. I value slowness and simplicity over complexity and speed and scale. Those aren't my goals. That's just not the life I want to live. So because I know that, I get to create my world, my business, my daily actions, and my team to fit that vision so that everything is aligned and I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, you're referring to, coming up with a vivid vision and reverse engineering it to the life you want to live, which ultimately, you and I have both achieved financial freedom. And I can tell you, when you do achieve a certain level of financial success, ultimately you still want to feel fulfilled and you still want to be productive, right? And you're not going to just ride off into the wind and, sit on a beach for the rest of your life, because I guarantee after 2 weeks that you're going to get real bored real quick, right? So, yeah, it's all about creating a life you really want to live.
Yep. Yeah, and that's that's why like the coaching stuff, like yeah, it's the money's good there too, but that's not why I'm doing it. It's the value that I receive back is a representation of the value that I give. But really it's just how I want to spend my time. So if that's aligned with my major life purpose and my values and what I like to do personally, and just the types of relationships and communication I like to have, then that's what I'm choosing to do right now. And it's a I'm very fortunate to be in that position. And yes, people have to work to get there. But having that clarity will give you the momentum and the mindset to keep going when things get tough, because you have a good reason to do it.
Absolutely. We all need a good why. So I like to wrap up the show with this question for all of my guests. What are 3 pieces of advice you would give your younger self to be successful in today's world?
Slow down. You don't have to rush. There is no rushing, and actually slowing down actually speeds things up. Never stop reviewing your vision and your values, because if you stay true to those, you'll always stay aligned in your actions. And never stop learning and getting perspective from those outside of yourselves, whether it's through a mastermind group or a coach or a program or something, but you have to look outside yourself.
That was a really good synopsis of this episode. I think you wrapped it all up with those 3 points. Okay, last question. Give our audience 3 books that you recommend on helping them achieve the level of success you've achieved.
Ooh, man, what a great question. So Scaling Up is, I refer to it as the business Bible.
Okay.
A lot of people are familiar with Traction or EOS. So a lot of people run on EOS. That is by a guy named Gino Wickman. Gino Wickman was a part of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. Okay. Entrepreneurs Organization was created by Vern Harnish, who wrote Scaling Up. So he is the godfather.
Okay. It all stems from him. He's the source.
He is the source. So
kind of like Tony Robbins with all the gurus, right?
That's right. That's right. So another great one is called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Phenomenal book on just evaluating your thoughts and your beliefs, and really helpful on overcoming limiting beliefs or trauma or just really challenging situations. I love the audio version of it. It's because you get to hear her do the work with other people. It's if you apply that work, it is life-changing work. Outside of that, I mean, this last one's tough, because now I have to choose between like a Tony Robbins book or another. I gotta say a Tony Robbins book.
Which one? He's got a million.
I know. I mean, let's see. Awaken the Giant Within, Unlimited Power. Yeah, those 2. I mean, those are 2 of the original. Like, yeah, either one of those 2. There's so much in there. Tony is not known for his brevity. He tends to go on and on. I guess I have that trait as well. But he
I think all coaches do, right?
Yeah, he breaks things down so well, and gives you like actionable advice and tactics and tools, and just really lets you open up your mind in new ways, and dream bigger and gain clarity, and I mean, if you haven't read anything by him, like, he's got so much out there, and he's now he's written all these financial books and health books and
Mm.
all these different things. But previously it was all just personal development. And as he's grown, I mean, now he owns, I don't know, a few hundred companies, and
He's a billionaire. Yeah.
yeah, they do like 15 billion a year in revenues. And so he's in a ton of different spaces. But I know like some people have some negative views about him as like this guru, but like if you actually read his stuff or listen to him, like he is a wealth of knowledge and can literally change your life.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I had negative viewpoints of Tony Robbins, but like I literally never went to any of his events, read none of his books. I was all just like based off just TV, and just so. And when you go to his events, you come to realize the guy he's literally been teaching presidents and leaders of the world since he was in his 30s, and the guy's like mid 60s, right? So he's just a wealth of knowledge.
Pretty incredible.
So Dan Brault, I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on the Freedom Real Estate Podcast and educate our audience on entrepreneurship and leading just a happy life. For people who want to find out more about you, possibly if they want coaching or learn more about wholesaling, where can they find you?
Yeah, appreciate that. So business, go to leaderos.co. There you can learn about what we're doing, take the business stability index to see how stable your business is. You can reach out for a deep dive call, or you can always message me on Instagram at It's Dan Brault.
Cool. Well, just want to thank you, Dan. Really appreciate you coming on the show. And just want to thank our audience for listening to the Freedom Real Estate Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes like this, we do this weekly. So come check us out and subscribe. Thank you, and we'll catch you later.